How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is December 1, 2019. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. All right, in December here.
How was Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Had the family over, and on Friday I watched Smackdown. I mean, man.
Did you really?
I didn't. I watched it tonight. Just like you did,
actually. I watched it tonight, too. I went skating for the first time in, like, God knows how many years.
Wow.
Probably 7-8 years? I don't know. Tore my pants up completely.
I thought you were going to say you, like, tore a muscle or something.
No, please. No bad luck there. No, I was, my daughter can't skate. I was trying to teach her.
Then you found out you can't skate?
I can still skate. Wow. No problem.
How about that?
Yeah. I can't skate as fast as I used to, but I can definitely I was still skating faster than most people there.
It's pretty good.
But, yeah, they don't have any, well, actually they do. The place I used to go to closed down probably 7-8 years ago, so I hadn't skated since. And then we ended up in another city, and the city, well, it was like a trick, because we went out for all-you-can-eat sushi, so I ate a lot. And then it was like immediately after, there's a roller rink in this city. We were in Rohnert Park, California, if people want to look that up, which is a couple hours away from here. And there was a roller rink, which, most places, those things are pretty much, they're not extinct, but there's a lot fewer of them than there used to be. And there's only a few within a couple hours of here. And that was like no fun going straight from all-you-can-eat sushi to skating. It was, if I had known, I felt like I was those guys at Tough Enough. Remember when they made him eat all that pasta, and then they had him do all those burpees, and then they want to have Kurt Angle run through everybody?
I do remember that. That did not go well for Kurt Angle in the end.
No. I know. Yeah, because Peter tanked the eating contest on purpose, because he figured out that they were scheming on him. It's like you can't have somebody think like a carny and do your carny stuff, and it just completely backfired. Yeah, that's actually what happened. He didn't. I don't think. Well, I know he didn't know that Kurt was going to come in and challenge everyone. But when they told everyone that they were going to do this eating contest, all the, with all this totally fattening pasta, it's like he figured out immediately. Everyone else is stuffing themselves with pasta, and he's eating nothing because he knew that it was a trick. And then they went out there and did all the squats to wear the guys out. And he actually did them. But, there's a rumor that he tanked the squats on purpose. But in fact, he didn't. He actually was doing it with better form than everyone else because they were all getting sick from the pasta. And so they wanted everyone, their legs to be shot and everything so Kurt could come in and beat him up. When you think back on this one, everyone knows that story and how it turned out. It's what? You know what I mean? You think back on that, it's at the time it was really stupid, but now with 15 years of hindsight, it's that Vince, you know what I mean? It backfired on him though, so.
It did backfire on him. That was the last time they did that.
It was the last time, yeah, it was the last time they tried anything like that. Yeah, it was the last time. And Al Snow, I guess, is don't do this. This is a bad idea. And Vince is just, he wants Kurt to tear up 7 guys. He messed up the neck of the first guy. Then, then I think Kurt was hurting, so he didn't want to do anymore. So he just kind of did this, does anyone else want it? Figuring nobody else would raise their hand. And then Peter raises his hand, and then the rest is history. What a travesty that was. I mean, and the other thing of it is on that one.
This is Daniel Puder, by the way, everybody, if you don't know.
Daniel Puder, Tough Enough, 2004, I think it was the year. And so the other thing that was so hilarious about it was that, what was the thing? That so they do all that, and if they had known that anyone would have figured it out, they would have, it was on a Tuesday, and the show didn't air, I think that the show didn't air till Thursday. So they thought nobody would figure out that he hooked him in a Kimura, because they had Kurt Angle pin him even though his shoulder was up. I think, was it Corderas who was the referee at that one? And I think Arn was the one who like count 3 right now, but the thing of it was that they, like, if they had known what a thing it would have turned into, they would have just edited off the show. It was like, it was not edited off the show because they thought that nobody would figure out that he got him in a Kimura.
Well, little did they know.
And then
Kurtz even admitted it years later that he had me.
Oh yeah. Well, it took him years to do that, but yeah, like at first, because like at first it was on the air, and then like really nobody got it on the East, because I remember on the East Coast, it aired on the East Coast, and there was like no big thing of anything that happened. And then when it aired on the West Coast, and it's like, I mean, I knew it, and Frank Shamrock called me and just goes, "Did you see that? He hooked him." And then I watched it, because I think I was watching it on a tape delay as well. And it was like, yeah, he hooked him. How come no one's saying it? So I wrote about it, and then it all exploded. After that, then it became like a big deal. And he ended up winning the contest. Can you
imagine if there had been a Twitter back then and you'd reported that? What a disaster that would have been.
I know. Everybody would have said, "Oh, no, it never happened."
You're a purveyor of misinformation.
I know. No shit. I know. What a crazy week. Whatever. It's like yeah. Well, I think those subjects are pretty much run their course, I suppose, until I don't. So as far as Mauro Ranallo goes, he is doing better, and I don't know if he's going to be there Wednesday or not. I know the company's been in touch. I have the impression they're trying for him to be ready by Wednesday, so hopefully he will. So that's the story on him.
All right, let's talk about the SmackDown show here.
What else did you think? Did you do anything else for Thanksgiving?
No, those were the things. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw, what was the name of the movie? Well, I mean, I saw the Mr. Rogers movie, and that was really good. But I also saw a movie that somebody on Twitter recommended me to watch. So this would have been last night. And so like at 11:30 or 12 last night, I watched this movie for 2 hours called Net Worth. It's a Canadian movie about, it's actually, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think that a lot of wrestling fans would really be interested in this movie. It was about the mid-1950s and the NHL attempting to unionize. And there's a lot of overtones. I mean, like when you watch it, you'll recognize the world of professional wrestling in hockey, like real quickly. So in a lot of ways. And in fact, the person who sent it to me said that they felt that like every wrestler needs to see this movie. And I suppose, I think that every wrestler probably should watch the movie. I mean, yeah, I actually think they should. So if you're a wrestler, I'm not saying, I would watch the movie. It's a good learning experience. Even though the movie's from a time that's 63 years old and a lot of things are way, way, way different. I wouldn't call the situations with wrestling in the NHL at that, wrestling now in the NHL then as being exactly the same or anything like that. But in some ways it's, like the hockey players were making a nice living for the time, but they were completely being ripped off by the owners. And the wrestlers are making, I would say, like a, general rule, WWE wrestlers, I mean, not the NXT guys, but the main roster guys are making, very good livings, but they're still being greatly, greatly, greatly underpaid. I mean, like to a ridiculous level if you compare them to, people in any other sport or entertainment form that generates that kind of money, because of the idea that the wrestlers are paid. It's so archaic because the wrestlers are supposed to be paid based on pay-per-views that don't exist anymore, merchandise, which still does, and house shows, which do exist, but it's not like when this silly, when it wasn't silly at the time, when this pay scale that these guys did and the nature of how wrestlers in WWE get paid, when it first was formulated, which came from regional wrestling territories, it made complete sense at the time because the whole business was house shows, and you would come back to house shows, week after week or month after month, depending on the city and the promotion. And the whole idea is that you live and died based on the house. So if you were a good wrestler, a good main event wrestler, and you knew how, you had the ability through talking, through working at the show, through a good finish to build a rematch, things like that, that the goal was always to increase the house. And if you increased the house, you shared in the success as the promoter. You were all in the same game together. And there was the idea is that the wrestlers all would get paid based on a percentage of the house. So business is good, you all get paid good. Business is bad, you all suffer. So you learn how to do good promos, because promos, you talk people into the buildings, and you learn how to do good finishes, because finishes lead to stories that lead to rematches. And if you botch up a finish, or you do something stupid, or do crappy interviews, then you all suffer. So it's a learning experience, and then you learn those those different situations and everything like that. I mean, now none of this is applicable. They come to a city once or twice a year. The finish that you do has nothing to do with the next show. You don't do localized promos, so you're not building up the house. The house show revenue is a minor part of the big. It's the revenue is from television. So I mean, and as the television revenue has increased with this last contract, the new contracts are for more money, but you're still, like hockey players, which then were underpaid, and now, I think hockey players are getting pretty much 50% of the revenue. At WWE, it's like 8%, and UFC was like 20%, and most sports are in the 50% range. But the reason is because all these other sports have unions. I mean, that is the reason. It's that, and so that's where the movie comes in, because it's like all of the players in that era were like, union, that'd be horrible, but they were all getting ripped off. They're it's the whole thing. It's like they had a weak pension plan, and it's like, this is 1956, and they're all fighting for like this pension plan, and it's like, here we are in 2019, and wrestlers and fighters have no pension plan in 2019, while these other athletes, like baseball players, had it in the 50s, and these other athletes, it took a little bit more time, but hockey players had a pension plan. It might not have been a good one, but they had one in the 50s, and it's like, so when you look at it that way, it's like, my God, we're talking 63 years ago. I mean, we're 63 years behind these guys. I often talk about wrestling being behind the times, but I never think of it as like 63 years. But last night actually, I started watching this and go like, man, it's 63 years. God damn. That's pretty bad. But, it is what it is. So there you go.
Let's talk about the Smackdown show. What'd you think?
I thought the show was fine. They had a small crowd, but they had a great responding crowd. So like the Roman Reigns match with Robert Roode had great crowd reactions, and I thought it was a really good, a basic match, but a good basic match. I thought Roode did a good job. Roman Reigns did a good job. The show was...
Dude, this opening segment was the first 40 minutes of SmackDown. We had Roman Reigns coming out, and he's doing this promo about how thankful he is for...
Happy Thanksgiving.
Well, he's thankful that last year at this time he was in rough shape, and here we are.
Yeah, he would have been about 5-6 weeks into his treatment.
That's right. So here he is a year later, and he's thankful, and he's happy. He's got his family. He's got the fans behind him. Out comes Baron Corbin. We have the usual deal, and it leads to Roman Reigns versus Robert Roode. We got Corbin out there. We got Ziggler out there. And they wrestled, and for a while it was just like a match, but it really did pick up at the end.
It was a good match, though. Yeah.
And, of course, Roman Reigns gets a spear for the pin, and then afterwards they do the big deal where Ziggler jumps Roman, Corbin tries to attack him, Robert Roode gets the scepter, and he tries to smash the scepter over Roman's head. His head's on a chair. And Roman moves out of the way, and he sees all the damage that Robert Roode was about to have caused his brain. So he decides he must destroy this guy. And he goes out, and he destroys him on the outside. He dumps the announce table on him. He throws chairs onto him. He just crushes this guy. And
so he speared him through the barricade.
Yep, speared him through the barricade.
And then he put the barricade on top of Roode, and then he put he threw the chairs, like those chairs, and the table, and he turned the table over on the barricade and threw the chairs. Yeah.
So he just crushes this guy. He destroys him. They stretcher Robert Roode out. And I looked down, and we're 40 minutes into the show. That was a long, long segment right there. And when it was over, I was just kind of like,
yeah, it's fine.
The hell are we doing here? Like, I liked it, but what, good. Roman's going to continue feuding with Ziggler and Corbin?
Oh, that I don't know.
It seems like he should have more important things to do.
Well, the plan, which who knows if it's, I'll try to check this week, but the plan was Roman Reigns against Corbin in some sort of stipulation match for the pay-per-view.
It'd probably be tables, ladders, and chairs, since Roman... There was a chair used here. There was a table used here. The only thing that wasn't used was a ladder. So maybe it'll be a chairs match. Who knows?
It could be a chairs match. It could be a tables match, because the TLC is going to be the plan was that the TLC match would be Charlotte and Becky Lynch against Asuka and Kairi Sane for the women's tag team titles.
So then we had a Bray Wyatt edition. This was like the first of 3 Firefly Funhouse segments. He's got a new belt, which apparently you can buy for $6,700. Is that correct?
Some crazy figure like that, yeah. So I think it was like 6,000.
It's either 6,400 or 6,700. But
I think it might be 6,400. But
the fact of the matter is, it's over $6,000 for this belt.
Yeah, it's overpriced.
Dude, this right here. Like, if you're gonna say what's one story that defines 2019, like, that's way up there. WWE has this audience now that is dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, but the people that remain are willing to spend much money on this.
Well, we
product.
don't know how many people are actually going to.
Well, I don't know how many are going to buy the belt, but I mean, they would not have priced this belt at $6,400 if they didn't think that what they have left is willing to potentially pay that amount.
If they don't believe that if they believe nobody's willing to spend it, they would not have priced it this high. This is definitely an experiment, and if it sells well, there will be more things like that priced in similar range. And if it doesn't sell well, then that will be a lesson as well. So, yeah, 60, yeah, crazy though.
We had Mustafa Ali beating Drew Gulak, just a match. It was fine, not a lot of heat. Bunch of backstage segments.
They only had 3 minutes. They were good though for the 3 minutes. They were good.
Had a bunch of backstage segments, and then Bayley and Sasha come out, and they're cutting their promo about the Survivor Series, and they are interrupted by, of all people, Lacey Evans, who is apparently now a babyface. There were fans
complete babyface, yeah,
chanting for her, and they went back and forth, and then Lacey Evans knocked out Sasha Banks, and that was the end of the segment. So I guess they're probably going to be doing a match next week.
Okay, so the key was that Bayley wouldn't attack her, like she knocked out Sasha and Bayley backed off. So then Bayley didn't help Sasha either, although when she was gone, Bayley whatever, but Bayley wouldn't jump her. So it's the idea is that Bayley was afraid of her. So that's the thing. She turned. Elias turned with no turn. So we're doing a lot of turns.
He did?
With no turn. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Wow, that's news to me.
Yeah.
We had another Daniel Bryan segment, but the Firefly Funhouse played again, and this time it was Bray Wyatt doing the Muscle Man dance with the pig. This was awesome, and they do this video. I love this video. Daniel Bryan just watches it, and he just hangs his head. So the funniest thing about this was, when the video's over, Kayla goes, "Daniel Bryan, do you have any thoughts?" And Daniel Bryan sits there in deep contemplation. He puts his head down, and they cut to commercial.
Yeah.
How about you give the guy some time to answer?
He needed time to compose his thoughts.
I see. Well, when they came back from commercial, they were doing Nikki Cross versus Sonya Deville. So, I mean,
Well, but they did give Daniel Bryan more interview time later.
They sure did, but that was bizarre. So Nikki Cross, Sonya Deville, they had a match, and Nikki Cross pinned her with an inside cradle, small package.
Off of, didn't Sonya do like a superplex? Sonya did a move. Let's see.
I don't think it was a superplex.
Yeah, I don't remember the move, but...
Anyway, the heels attack her, and who should make the big save but Alexa Bliss? She is back, and she runs down, and she hugs Nikki.
Oh, it was the old Ric Flair slam off the top rope. And then, match only went in a minute and a half, so it wasn't anything much of a match.
So Alexa runs down, makes a save, she hugs Nikki, and then Nikki hugs her, and then she hugs her again, and again, and again, and again. I could be wrong, but I watched this, and I think Alexa's turning on Nikki sooner rather than later.
Well, at some point she is. I mean, I think that's been always been the end result of this thing.
We had a segment with Miz and Daniel Bryan, and Miz said that you've got to defeat the Fiend. Look what he did.
No. This was different. Before he had to beat the Fiend to save his children. Miz has done the complete 180. Now it's like, just don't even wrestle him because he's going to ruin you. He ruined Seth, even though Seth's around every week, and he ruined Finn Balor, even though Finn Balor's around every week.
Yeah, he said, look at how they've changed. I was like, okay, one guy, they both turned heel.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, and I guess that we can't afford Daniel Bryan to turn heel, even though he was a heel just a couple weeks ago.
So Miz mentioned that Daniel Bryan talked about his family. Bryan did not want to hear the word family, and Miz said, all right, I'll get out of here. Then we had the segment with the Drifter. Drake Maverick is back there trying to hit on Dana Brooke. Tries to hold up the mistletoe. She wants none of it.
He's a married dude.
That's what she said. She goes, aren't you married? And he goes, it's complicated. Up walks the Drifter. He plays a song.
He insults Drake.
Yeah, Dana
likes his music. And then Corey Graves made a Dave Bautista reference because they're having a... I don't know if they have a romance or not, but they're pretending to if they don't.
They're teasing on social media that they're having some sort of something or other.
Yeah.
And we had the New Day versus Cesaro and Nakamura, and it was all right. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And right. Kingston hit the Trouble in Paradise on Cesaro for the pin. And that was it. Sami Zayn tried to interfere. He got ejected. And that's about it for that. Then we had the Daniel Bryan segment where he comes down to the ring. He's cutting this promo. And he basically turns babyface. He gets the fans to chant the yes chant. He does the yes chant. Another Firefly Funhouse. This time, Bray Wyatt says... Bray Wyatt's been wanting him to do a rematch. The second Firefly Funhouse before the rap video... Bray basically said, hey, I want to play again with Daniel Bryan. Does Daniel Bryan want to do this? And so Daniel Bryan finally comes out and he accepts the challenge. And then when Bray appears on the big screen, he says, I promised a new face here on SmackDown. And so the lights go out and he comes out from underneath the ring. He attacks Bryan, puts him in the claw, drags him into a hole in the ring. And all of a sudden you start seeing hair yanked out from underneath the ring. So I guess Bray Wyatt has scalped Daniel Bryan. Is that what happened here?
I do not know, but that was the conclusion that I came to.
He better not have hair next week.
My expectation was that he's probably not going to have hair next week, or less hair, if nothing else, but probably shaved his head bald. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I'll tell you what, man, I don't know exactly, even though they had a good match at the last pay-per-view, This doesn't get me all excited to see him wrestle again.
I don't want to fantasy book The Fiend because pretty much anything you fantasy book is pretty stupid, but I'm old school, and if you're going to shave your damn head, it should be in a match. And you could have done an easy storyline where Bray Wyatt is always friendly Bray Wyatt, but when he puts that mask on, then he's the Fiend. Daniel Bryan wants the mask. Bray Wyatt says, I'll give you a shot at the mask, but you got to put your hair on the line. Boom, you're done.
Yeah, well, that's...
Instead, he dragged this guy into the ring on the Thanksgiving edition of the show, the lowest rated SmackDown that we have seen yet on Fox.
Was it the lowest?
And this would have been the lowest. It was just barely the lowest.
Okay, just barely lower than than the last one.
It was just barely the lowest, but I mean, you lost your hair on that show in unplanned, not unplanned, but like, you just got dragged into the ring and your hair got pulled out.
Well, we'll find out next week, what the status of his hair is. But
was this his back hair? I mean, that was a lot of hair that came off the dude's body. He better be bald next week.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's what I figure.
Just a weird angle.
Everything's weird about it. It's like they book it they book the matches to make you less excited to see them, and then they put the guys in the worst handicap in the world, because you've got this monster who can't sell too much or else he loses his superpower, his aura. And they put him in red tint, so you just lose your interest in it. So it's like they're just out there to make Daniel Bryan prove that you cannot ruin a Daniel Bryan match no matter how hard you try, I guess is the idea. Even though I guess they were certainly able to do that with Seth, because he never pulled out a good match. None, and not to his whatever, and that's with 0% blame on Seth. There's nothing he could have done, I suppose. Well, I shouldn't say 0, because Daniel Bryan did get a good match out of him. So before I thought nobody...
wait, because somebody mentioned this on Observer Live. If you would have had Daniel Bryan do the same match that Seth Rollins had to do in Hell in a Cell, which was basically just hit the Fiend with stuff for 15 minutes while the Fiend didn't sell it.
Yeah,
and then you had Seth go in there and actually try to have a wrestling match with a babyface comeback against Bray Wyatt. They would have been two totally different matches. We would be saying, man, Seth got a match out of the Fiend that Daniel Bryan couldn't get.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that, because you got to prove it first.
Well, you do, but how could Daniel Bryan have made that Hell in a Cell match any good if it were booked the exact same way that Hell in a Cell match was?
Nobody could have made that match good, because there were way too many handicaps. Nobody, I do believe nobody could have had that could have made that match good. But the idea that Seth could have made the other match good that Daniel Bryan did, he very well have been able to. But there's no proof that he could.
I'm not saying that it would have been as good as a Daniel Bryan match, but if Seth Rollins would have been allowed to have a match with The Fiend, I guarantee it would be better than the Hell in a Cell match he had with The Fiend.
Oh, well, no shit. That match was terrible.
Yes.
Of course, if any kind of difference from that would have been a better match. If he had done that same match, but it was shorter, it would have been better. If he had done that match with a finish, it would have been 1,000,000 times better, or 10 times better anyway. But yeah, no, they basically put him in a situation where it was like, no one in that situation with that finish was going to end up pleasing the people when it was over. In no way.
All right, so if you want more WWE, the Starrcade show is tonight. There's 2 matches on the actual show. We got Asuka and Kairi Sane versus Becky Lynch and Charlotte versus Bayley and Sasha versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, Fatal 4-Way for the women's tag team titles. And also, yes, Rusev will be facing Bobby Lashley. Keep in mind that on Monday, Bobby Lashley was killed and Rusev was arrested, violating a parole, assaulting officers, attempted murder.
Was he violating parole or just
not violating parole, a restraining order?
Violating restraining order.
I mean, this is probably a parole violation here, this last man standing match. They're doing a last man standing match at Starrcade here on Sunday.
Yeah, in the first meeting.
Yeah, that's how this is starting.
Yeah,
How do you start? And keep in mind, they were going to do this match in the Survivor Series, and they pushed it back to TLC.
Yes.
But for some reason, we're getting it on a network special nobody's watching on Sunday night on Thanksgiving weekend, starting with a last man standing match.
Yes. Starting with the last man standing match. Starting the feud with it. Because we have to build up to a regular match.
What is happening here?
The same thing that's been happening for years. But if you it's I'm just saying, it is impossible to work in creative there. It is impossible. Do not blame the people in creative. I will just say that, because there are many people in creative who Absolutely.
are well aware you shouldn't start with a last man standing match?
I would
say that would be everyone there.
I wouldn't go that far.
Except for the guy at the top.
I wouldn't go that far because there's people there. There's plenty of people there who don't know the nuts and bolts of building and things like that. That didn't grow up watching logical wrestling or anything. But there are certainly many who do. But the guy who's making the calls, it's for whatever reason he doesn't. He just think it's not a long term. It's like what can we do? Let's do a last man standing match in the first match. Then what do we come back with? We'll think of that later. Maybe they're going to come back. Maybe it'll be a last man standing match, and they'll come back with a chairs match.
It'll be tables, lanas, and chairs at the TLC pay-per-view. She'll be hanging from the ceiling, and they got to climb up and get her.
Okay, that's how about a contract, a wedding contract. So like you get up there, and then whoever wins it signs their name, and then gets to marry her. How's that? No, bad idea. Really bad idea, huh?
How about you hang Lana's wedding ring above the ring, and if Rusev gets it, he can pawn it, and if Lashley gets it, he can use it to marry Lana.
Okay, that's as stupid ideas go. That's not a bad one.
Yeah, see, I can think of stupid ideas.
I could think of stupid ideas all day long. So,
here's another stupid idea, by the way. This one's actually being done. So on Raw Monday, last week, Charlotte faced Asuka one-on-one.
And lost.
And Kairi kept interfering, and Charlotte lost. So now Charlotte wants to face them both at the same time.
Yeah. That's actually not that unusual in the sense of you would do something like that where somebody keeps interfering, and then you go with both of them. The thing is, though, is like...
We already saw that she lost to one of them, so how are we supposed to think she has any chance against both of them? I mean, she'll probably win. They are the tag team champions. It's not the first time Vince has booked something like this, but
they're building to a title match. I guess you could beat Kyrie, and then they can think.
Well, I think what's going to happen is Becky's going to interfere to help Charlotte probably beat Kyrie.
Yeah.
Then you got your tag match.
That would probably be what they would do, but. It's them. I mean, that's just because that makes the most sense of any finish that we could think of. That's at best a 30% chance it's going to happen.
Well, hey, at least we have that 30% chance. And then Seth Rollins will be apologizing, I guess, to everybody after his town hall meeting where he turned heel last week. So you know how those apologies go. I'm sorry I wasn't more harsh on you losers. Probably something like that.
Maybe he could just do what Corey Graves did, and just say
double down.
No, go say that he's going to apologize on his podcast.
Yeah. Well, he's already said he's going to apologize on Raw. So.
Yeah.
All right. So Wednesday,
they can. But how many times have they advertised somebody with a
countless
great and big announcement, and then you watch the show and they don't have the announcement, and they don't have it the next week or the week after.
I was going to say, how many times have they advertised anything for Raw that didn't happen? And the answer there is, in fact, countless.
Yeah, most of the time. Awesome. Yeah.
All right, so AEW on Wednesday has Pentagon Jr. Chris Daniels in a one-on-one match. Phoenix will be facing Trent Beretta in a one-on-one match.
He's no longer Beretta. He's just Trent.
And
yes, they informed me of it. He used to be Trent Question. And then they removed the question, so he's just Trent, and that may change again.
And we've also got Young Bucks and Dustin versus Santana Ortiz and Sammy Guevara, and Jon Moxley and Joey Janela, also on the show on Wednesday.
So it's a show, So yep. What's the other side have? NXT.
I don't know.
Okay.
But I do want to bring up the SmackDown ratings.
Didn't they?
I'll look for it here while I talk about the SmackDown ratings. Show did a 2.336 million viewers, lowest total since the show's debut on Fox at the start of October.
Yeah, it's the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend. I don't even put any like if it was 1.5 million or something, I would get alarmed. But it's a little bit lower than it did a couple of weeks ago. I don't it's like. This is, and again, I would say the same thing for the Wednesday ratings, no matter what they are. I would throw those. I mean, like whoever wins, wins. I wouldn't throw out who wins. That's significant. But the number, let's just say that the numbers are low. I expect the numbers to be low. And I expect the numbers on Friday to be low. Monday should be, in theory, Monday should be back to normal. But, normal on Monday is low now, based on the past. So, yeah.
All right, so in NXT this Wednesday has Damian Priest, Killian Dane. A match I feel like I've seen multiple times. I could be wrong.
But yet you probably actually have only maybe seen once.
Well, and they've also done 3-ways and that sort of thing, but...
Yeah.
All righty, so it is award season. Actually, before that, there's a AAA show in Monterey today that you cannot watch unless you're in Monterey, it looks like.
Or if you scour the internet, somebody is probably going to be streaming it through their phones from that building, from that stadium in Monterey.
I see.
There's a hair match. There's a cage. They're throwing a whole bunch of their stars in a match, and the loser loses his hair or his mask. And then Kenny Omega against Dragon Lee, first time that they have ever wrestled each other in singles, tags, or anything for the AA Mega Campeonato. And there you go. So, the only thing that we can figure out as to why it's not streaming is because maybe Multimedios, which is helping put it on, wants the first airing of it, and it's going to air on Multimedios in Mexico in 2 weeks. So after that, we'll probably get a chance to see it.
Alrighty, so it's award season, and don't want to go through all of these because people have to vote, but any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I got thoughts on all of them, but...
Well, don't do that. You don't want to sway the voting, but just like some general
Why not?
thoughts.
Shit, everyone else does. How come I'm not allowed to?
Well, it's your newsletter.
Yeah, okay. So Wrestler of the Year, this is an interesting one. The one thing about this year, as compared to other years, is that most years at this point, I could pretty much tell you who's going to win. Like, not necessarily the plurality, but who's going to win in a lot of categories is pretty obvious. And this year, I would say Will Ospreay is going to win Most Outstanding, and that's somewhat obvious. But as far as other awards, man, I don't know that there's too many locks out there.
Maybe worst promotional tactic.
Which one?
Crown Jewel.
Okay, it definitely could be. Yeah, but I mean that is that going to win like 10 straight years?
Dude, at this rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it is 2 years in a row, likely.
Yeah.
Although when you think about it, there may have been other horrible promotional tactics out of WWE that I've forgotten because of Crown Jewel, but that's the one that sticks in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those you want to talk about? I don't even have the list in front of me.
Okay. So Wrestler of the Year is really interesting. If you're going to do an MVP, I would say just an MVP, Chris Jericho. If you're going to do the Most Outstanding and Most Valuable,
well, Most Outstanding, quite frankly, should be the Most Outstanding.
That's Will Ospreay's most outstanding.
Jericho was extraordinarily important to AEW. He still is. He's always in the highest rated quarter for the most part. He's the champion. He's been actually, I think Jericho has got a real good shot at Best on Interview, but so does Cody. Yeah. Cody had that one really, really great interview, and he's had some other really great interviews.
All his interviews have been good,
but it feels like a lot of Cody's interviews have not been on national television, whereas many of Jericho's have. So yeah. I think that is going to that'll be in his favor. If all of those Cody interviews that were on like the Road to and that sort of thing, if those had all been on national television, I mean, probably would have won. But I think that there's a lot of people that are only watching the TNT. And that, Jericho's the guy that's on TNT every week doing these great promos.
Yeah. Bray Wyatt will probably win Best Gimmick.
Probably, but that Hell in a Cell, he may win best and worst.
He'll probably win worst match.
Yeah.
Yeah, that match with Rollins. I think that'll win worst match. But yeah, so wrestler of the year, I mean, Okada, you always have to include Okada. He's champion. He's had incredible matches. Ibushi won G1, had incredible matches. Ishii and Shingo Takagi, but probably most outstanding than MVP or wrestler of the year. Who else as far as wrestler of the year? Will Ospreay, of course. Kento Miyahara. In fact, I could see him getting votes because he pretty much was the star of All Japan all year. I think that there'll be votes for Adam Cole. But I don't think that. I don't know. Yeah, Adam Cole will get votes too. I mean, it's hard to say, but I don't know who's going to win on that one. I need to look up who's eligible for Rookie of the Year. If Jake Atlas is eligible, but I'm trying to, because did he work any major promotions prior to this year? I mean, he's been around doing indies, but it's like, working for a major promotion. He might be the winner there. And I have to look up if he's eligible. Tag team of the year. So the most valuable tag team, without doubt, is the Young Bucks. But they didn't work nearly as many dates as Pentagon and Phoenix. So I would say Pentagon and Phoenix are going to win that one. That's my gut. I mean, maybe not. The Young Bucks have won how many straight years? But I would presume they'll be 1 and 2. Is there anyone else that Fish and O'Reilly would probably be up there for sure? But I don't see them. Not with Pentagon and Phoenix have just been outstanding everywhere, nightly, all over the world.
Checking Jake Atlas here. I think everything has been 2019. Let's see. Last year, no, his Impact and Ring of Honor were all 2019.
Yeah, Jungle Boy would probably be eligible this year too.
Yeah,
and then now, oh God, Uemura and Tsuji. When did they start?
Not sure. So they'd obviously be in there if they're. Let's see.
Carl Fredericks.
Yeah. All right. What else do we got?
What do you think for promotion of the year? What do you think for wrestler of the year?
Wrestler of the year? I don't know. It probably is Jericho. I mean, Okada.
Okada should certainly finish very, very high.
He should finish very, very high, but
and he could win. He could win,
but he doesn't seem like he's as important to his promotion this year as Jericho was to his promotion.
I would agree. I still think that for whatever reason, I think that Ospreay has just had such an incredible year that I could vote for him for wrestler of the year. And he had, he did help as far as, New Japan's popularity in the UK and Australia, which were both big growth markets. The perception of the junior division, junior heavyweight going into G1, although they didn't put him over strong, but they put him in Shingo. They certainly had some incredible matches in G1. I don't know. I could definitely see Will Ospreay. I think Ospreay, Jericho, and Okada are probably the strongest candidates that I would say for all of them. Match of the year. So I would say this: had Okada lost to Ospreay, that would have been match of the year. But since he didn't, it's a candidate. I think Omega and Tanahashi is definitely a candidate. Ishii and Shingo Takagi from G1. Ibushi and Jay White from G1. I'm trying to think what other stuff in G1. I mean, there's I sort of at one point had this idea that every single Shingo Takagi match should be in there. But yeah, I think those Shingo Takagi and Ishii was super, super strong. So I think those might be the best. I think one of the Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano matches was right up there with them. I would not list this because there were matches better, but I still would recommend everyone seeing the David Starr Jordan Devlin match from a couple weeks back in Dublin, just because it was pretty incredible, that match. All things it was great crowd, great story, kind of a double turn in a sort of way, but just awesome match.
I also got the Promotion of the Year and Best Weekly TV Show, and AEW hasn't even a promotion a full year, but I think there's a very good chance it's going to win.
Promotion of the Year? I would go with New Japan Pro Wrestling just because G1. I couldn't, and selling out the Tokyo Domes this year, and the business AEW's an interesting one for sure. I would not so much go for AEW as Promotion of the Year, although I mean you could make that argument, but I would say Tony Khan for Promoter of the Year.
Sure.
I mean, is there anyone? I mean, if you think about starting from scratch and the success that they've had, and it all happened this year, and getting on TNT and everything like that. Is there anyone else who could even? Is there anyone that you would even put up an argument?
Not Vince.
Oh, well, hell no, not this year.
Telling you that much.
I mean, you could always do, Kidani or Harold. Is there anybody? I mean, what are the company? Certainly can't do CMLL. Chavo Ludarov. Ain't going to be winning that one. Yeah, I think Tony Khan will win that one. Will win Promoter of the Year, and there'll be some people absolutely furious with it too.
There's going to be people furious with anything that AEW wins here.
Well, that's one of their. They'll probably So I think that either Cody or Jericho is going to end up winning Best on Interview, so they'll win at least that one.
Probably going to win Best Weekly TV Show.
Tag Team of the Year. They're going to, whether it's Young Bucks or Pentagon and Phoenix, they're going to win that one. Rookie of the Year. I don't know about that. I don't know if they'll win that. Best Booker. That's probably going to be Ghetto again, don't you think?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, so the Booker of AEW would be Tony Khan again. Vince isn't going to win. I mean,
he better not. We'll lose all faith in subscribers if Vince McMahon wins the Booker of the Year.
He isn't going to win.
Kidding me?
There's not a chance he's going to win. I could see Best TV Show. Yeah, maybe AEW. Maybe
it's almost certainly going to be a national American television show with a wide viewership. And so I think it's going to come down to either NXT or AEW. Okay, ain't going to be Raw.
No,
it's not going to be SmackDown.
It's not going to be SmackDown, no, it's not going to be Impact.
Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, they're not going to get the votes.
Definitely not going to be Ring of Honor. Absolutely not going to be Ring of Honor.
So it's going to come down to AEW and NXT. And no matter who wins, people are going to be furious.
It could come down. It could be New Japan. Yeah.
And, oh man, we'll have some good ones down here with Worst Announcer.
Best Announcer, Kevin Kelly.
Best Announcer is probably Kevin Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, just because G1 alone. When G1 was over, I thought he clinched the whole thing. I thought that the work that Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero did in G1 and Best of the Super Juniors, just so good. So good. We should have something for like Best Tournament. K1 and G1 and Best of Super Juniors were so good this year. I mean, they were unbelievably good. So, yeah.
What about that King of the Ring?
Please.
Actually, it wasn't that bad. I was expecting the King of the Ring to be a lot worse. They let Chad Gable go in there and have some really good matches, and it overachieved based on what I expected out of the
2019 WWE King of the
when
Ring.
I told the story about my brother, who had texted me during, and had watched some WWE and just thought it was like the greatest thing he'd ever seen. So I saw him on Thursday, and he had like this screenshot of this match, and he goes, "This was the match," and it was Baron Corbin against Chad Gable was the match that he saw that he thought was like so much better than anything.
Dude, that was a really good match.
Other than like the Young Bucks and Adam Cole against Will Ospreay, Matt Sydal, and Ricochet match that he saw like in 2017, which he was, that was like all of our childhood friends watching that and just going like, this is what pro wrestling is now? Oh my fucking God.
Yes, Chad Gable was incredible in the King of the Ring. He was more over as Chad Gable in the King of the Ring than he has been for one single day as Shorty Gable. And Baron Corbin was actually really good in the tournament until they put that goddamn crown on him, and he's been just death TV ever since.
Yeah, but it was interesting because he thought that he just goes like he didn't know who either guy was, and he goes, the small guy's fantastic. He's like Billy Robinson. He's like fantastic, and I go, yeah. And going the big guy, he's like we never had big guys who can move like that. Back in when we watched wrestling, all the big guys were clods, and it's like yeah. And it's like, that like every like Wednesday, there's 2 shows, and every week they've got like 3, both those shows have 3 matches as good as that match, so it's like, but yeah, it was a good match, but it's just interesting because, like people like will talk about like, oh, like the old days were so much better, but I think that like there's like that romanticism thing, but like the wrestling, I don't see I think the wrestling is like leaps and bounds better now. I mean, interviews, no, of course not. Interviews then were much better.
Let's do a couple of these mailbag questions here. This person here says, on the AAA show last night, the commentators were talking about the upcoming Big Mommy versus Lady Maravilla match, trying to remember the last time.
The hair match in 2 weeks.
Trying to remember the last time there was a hair versus hair match where one of the wrestlers was masked. They could not remember, did not know. Has this happened before in any notable matches?
For sure.
This has happened.
For sure, because I remember the idea where they would take the mask off, shave their head, and then put the mask back on.
Yes.
Yes, so it has happened.
This person here says, I was watching an old Nitro. Eric Bischoff asked Sid if not having scissors was his issue. If Sid has his scissors... Oh, basically they wanted the story about why Eric Bischoff mentioned the scissors, because they have absolutely no idea.
Nor did any of the fans.
Yes, the fans didn't either. Do not feel bad, my friend.
Yes, it was
but
funny.
But there was a real story behind that.
Okay, so Eric like said the scissors, and nobody reacts, and he's thinking, they must not have heard me. So he goes, real scissors! And nobody reacted again. So what happened was that in England, there was a situation where at the bar, guys were in England, they drank too much, and Arn Anderson made a remark about Sid Vicious. I forgot what the remark was, but it was something to the effect of, you're the shits as a worker. And Sid stewed and got really mad and left. And then later that night, Arn Anderson's like asleep or something, and somebody just pounded on his door. He opens up the door, and Sid Vicious is there with a chair, and he whacks him as soon as that door opens. Just whacks him and knocks him down, and they're in a fight. And Arn, wait a minute, did he say scissors or squeegee?
I'm pretty sure it was the scissors. The squeegee was a different incident. That was the Pillman incident.
That was the
it was definitely scissors, if I recall correctly.
Okay, well the squeegee was more okay. So Arn Anderson was the one who brought the scissors into the fight. Arn Anderson went into his toilet kit and got scissors, and then Sid got the scissors and stabbed him like 40 times with the scissors, and Sid ended up getting fired, and it was like a very famous brawl. There's blood all over the hallway. It was like a big national story in the UK. They nearly had to cancel the whole tour. They had to get Sid out of the country. And Sid ended up being fired for it, and he was supposed to main event Starrcade that year, and it ended up... Can you imagine how horrible that Starrcade was, and the main event was going to be Vader against Sid Vicious? That would have been like the worst Starrcade in the history of Starrcades, but because Sid got fired, they had to put Ric Flair in the main event against Vader, and they actually had like kind of a classic match.
That's right. That's the scissor story. The squeegee was Brian Pillman.
Okay, so that one I know I know the Brian Pillman one because the guy called me up as soon as it was over, and then I heard from like a couple people in the bar who pretty much, when they were explained to me, it was the exact same story Brian had told me. So Brian's in a bar, and this is Sid, is shows up, and he's bragging about how much money he's making, and I'm trying to remember what it was. He was just bragging about that, and Brian. I remember Brian got like sick of it, and I don't remember the exact verbiage. The Observer back then would have had it, and I mean it was literally like the word for word. But I don't know if it was this one or another point where Sid went to Brian and said like, I'm just too big for you, and Brian was like, I played in the NFL and tackled guys bigger than you, like that. And, they had some words, and then Sid was just like, I think Sid was injured. He might have had like a torn muscle or something. And just goes, you're not worth it. I'm injured. I'm not going to get hurt worse. So he leaves. So they figure, okay, it's over. Sid left. Then he comes back with a weapon, and it was a squeegee. And he was going to fight Brian, with a squeegee, and then Mike Graham, who's even littler than Brian, although Mike Graham is a tough guy, or, was, obviously. He's not alive anymore. But Mike Graham was, the classic little guy, with a complex, who was, a real badass guy. He was state champion wrestler, power lifter, street fighter. He got in a lot of fights. So he got the squeegee away from Sid, and then Sid was like, you're not worth it, and then left the bar. So there was no fight.
All righty, this person here says, why did Terry Funk stop getting booked in All Japan after 1990?
Baba thought that his back was too thrashed, and just didn't want him to be out there and not being able to perform at that level. And Terry ended up going, to the different indies. He went to FMW first, did that big 32,000 people with Onita match, and then ended up with Wing because he was friends with Victor Quinones. And what was the company? Big Japan with the death match where he was with Mick Foley. I think it was Big Japan. So he ended up working, going to the different indies because his name was so big and he still wanted to wrestle. But Baba thought that Terry was just hurting too bad and wasn't at the caliber of being Terry Funk anymore.
This person says, AEW had any thoughts about hiring Jim Johnston? The music is really missing something.
I haven't heard his name, but, that's a logical idea for sure. It's a real logical idea.
This person wants to know if there's any update on Dio Madden.
I should ask again. If he's not on TV this week, I would say it's probably at that point not a good sign. Obviously the first couple weeks was selling the F5. The first 2 weeks, I was surprised he was still selling it this week. I have not heard anything with the idea that he is gone, but he hasn't knocked him dead either, and it wouldn't shock me. The thing that surprised me was that Samoa Joe wasn't on this last week because he was great. And I thought, okay, he's got a broken thumb. Maybe he wants to be a wrestler, and they don't want an active wrestler doing the commentary, so therefore they don't want Joe to be a regular. But as long as Joe's injured, he might as well do it. He's He can't wrestle, and he's great at the commentary thing. So I guess we'll see Monday.
And finally, this person here says, is it 100% confirmed that the G1 Climax next year will be in October instead of the July-August because of the Olympics? Do you know what the proposed start date is?
I do not know the start date. When I wrote it, it was 100%, and I don't think that would change. But I haven't talked to anyone about it. They will announce it on probably January 4th, maybe January 5th. that they will announce, because they'll announce at the show, like basically like the key matches and the key nights in G1 and the biggest shows coming up of the year will be announced. I mean, traditionally it's announced on the July 4th show. So we'll see if they run the United States show, or what the big buildings are, and what the opening day and closing day of the G1 is. But it was October, the last I was told. Yes.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. There's all sorts of great stuff up on the front page. New Observer is out. Came out on Thursday. Dave, they're working on Thanksgiving. And we'll have a bunch of shows up tomorrow, more on Monday. New back issue of the Observer up on Monday, so check that out. And that is it, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.